Hello, dear soulmates, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Latifa, and in today's tutorial, you'll be learning how to draft this beautiful wrap shorts or the skirt. Now, this tutorial is actually quite easy. It is beginners friendly, easy to draft, cut, and sew. If this is what you like to learn, then kindly stay tuned to the end of this video. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, guys, kindly do so, and also turn on post notifications so as to get notified whenever I post a new video. Thank you. Welcome to class soulmates. To start with now, I'll be drafting my front and back on the same piece of pattern paper. I'm going to come down from the top part of my paper by 3 inches to get my margin. So I was going to go ahead and rule this across. I'll just go ahead and highlight it with my marker so we actually get to see what I am doing. From the side of my paper also, I'm going to come in by about 3 inches too, and then I will rule it down like so. I'm going to label this as my waistline. Now, to get my crotch depth and width, I'll be dividing my hip circumference by 4. Whatever you have now, you're just going to go ahead and mark it from the waistline down like so. And I'm just going to go ahead and mark it like this from the side too. Divide your hip circumference by 4 to get the crotch depth and the width. And then I'm just going to go ahead and connect it to form a box, as you can see. This is actually one of my favorites and tested method of getting my crotch depth and width. Now when I'm done, I'm just going to label this my crotch depth. Now to get my hip depth now, you can go ahead and measure your hip, waist to hip, and then mark it. But in case you actually forgot to take this on your client, for a slim person, you want to come up by 2 inches from the crotch depth and mark. But if you're working with a plus size, you want to do 2.5. This is actually accurate, it works for me. Now I'm going to go ahead and label my waistline, my hip depth, and also my crotch depth. Now the next thing I'll be doing now is to mark the length of my skirts. So remember, it's actually going to be short. The shorter it is, the more it's going to come out well. Yes. So I'm gonna have to mark out my trouser length now, or my skirt length, sorry. Now the next thing I want to get now is to get my crotch extension. And to do that now, for the front, you're going to divide your hip circumference by 20. So my hip circumference now is 40. When I divide it by 20, that will be 2 inches. From the hip line now, I'm going to come out by 0.25 and then connect. This is to actually avoid squeezing or small lines at the hip area or the crotch area. Now on my waistline now, I'm going to divide my waist into 4 and then add 1 inch for my dart intake. Now I'm just going to go ahead and connect it into my hip line like so. I'll also be extending it by 0.5 inch. Now to get my dart, now I'm going to divide my waistline, whatever I have on the waistline, into 2, and then I'll take 0.5 on both sides for the dart. For the length of my front dart now, I'm going to come down by 4.5 and then connect it to the 0.5 on both sides of the dart like so. Now when I'm done now, I'm going to come down by 0.5 inch on my waistline at the center front. This is to actually avoid bulge or small lines on the waist region, and then I'll connect it to the dart leg as seen. Now to get my crease line, I'm going to divide from my crotch extension to the hip width into 2. I'll measure whatever I have, divide it into 2, and then I would also mark it on the short length and then connect it straight like this. Now I'm going to take the circumference of where my short is ending. Please note where the short is ending. I'm going to circumference of that place, and then I'll divide it into 4 and then mark it on both sides of the crease line. And then I'll connect it using my curved ruler. I can see that I flipped my curved ruler, so I'm going to use it to actually connect it like so, like this on the CF, and then I'll put the same thing on the outer seam like so. Now for the back pattern now, from my crotch line, I am going to come in by 0.5. That's for hip 36 and below. but for hip 38 and above you want to use 1 inch. And then on the waistline I would come in by 2 inches and extend the line by 1.5 and then connect it slanted, like you should have a slanted line. Now from that line I'm going to go ahead and measure my waist circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch for the dart, and then I'm also going to raise it up by 0.5 so that they are equal, and I'll connect it straight up like this. Now on my hip line now I am going to measure my hip divided by 4 from the new crotch line on the back, and then I'll mark whatever I have. As you can now, to get my crotch extension for the back I am going to divide my hip circumference by 10 by 10. So whatever I have now I'm just going to mark it from the crotch line, as you can see, and then I'm just connecting this straight up like this, and then I would also come in by 0.25 on the hip depth. This is also to avoid smile lines on the back part of my trouser or my short, and then I'm going to go ahead and connect it like this. Now on both sides of the front I am going to add 0.5 inch for the ease, and then I'll connect both the inseam and then the outer seam, as you can see. So I ended up using my curve to achieve the perfect shape. Now we have both our front and back pattern. Now for my dart I'm also going to divide the waist into 2 and then mark ½ inch on both sides of the dart. Now for the dart length for the back now I'm using 7 inches. Remember the back pattern is longer than the front, or the back panel is longer than the front, so I was going to connect it slanted like this. Remember that our crotch line is actually slanted for the back, so you want to repeat the same thing for the dart legs too. The dart should be slanted. Now our front and back pattern for the short is ready. The next thing we would be doing now is tracing out our back, or the front, or both. So I'm placing a new piece of pattern paper underneath now, and then I'm going to start tracing using my tracing wheel. So you want to trace out every line, just tracing out the side seam now, the sides rather. I'll trace out my waist, the crotch extension, the crotch region, the crotch line, everything basically for the back. You can also go ahead and trace out both the front and back, and also keep this as the master pattern for use at some other point in time. This is me tracing out all my lines. Now when I'm done tracing, I'm just going to go ahead and use my marker to highlight my lines. So I'm just tracing out. You can't see the traced lines, but I can see it, and I'm just going to use my marker to actually highlight it so you get to see it too. Please, you can also use this method to make a long trouser and not just the shorts alone. All you just need to do is to add to the length of your trousers. So this is my back part. I'm just labeling this now. So I've gone ahead to cut out both the front and the back, as you can see. So I have my front and then I have the back. Now the next thing for us to do now is to draft the skirt part of our skirt. So I'm just going to go ahead now and fold my pattern paper into 2, because we'll be having an asymmetric design in front, which is the skirt. That is why I'm folding it into 2. So I'm just going to go ahead now and fold my pattern paper into 2. So now I'm going to measure the length of my shirt, which is the same length I'll be using for my skirt. I'm just going to go ahead and rule out my margin. I'm just ensuring that my paper is laying flat. So I'm going to rule out my margin. It's going to be the starting point and it's also going to serve as my waistline. And then I'll mark the length of my skirt, which is 19 inches. I'm just marking out the length here. So which is 15 inches. Now I'm going to mark my waist to hip. Now the waist to hip should align with the one on the short, please. I'm going to rule this across now. And then I'm going to rule the length across. So I'm going to label the hip, the waist, and of course the length of my skirt. Now I'm going to divide my waist into 4 plus 1 inch for the dart, and then add that or input that on the waist line. I also divide my hip into 4 and then mark it. Now for my the length, now I'm going to hip divided by 4 minus 1 inch, and then I'm going to connect it like this. I'm also going to divide my nipple to nipple into 2 for my dart. Now the length of my dart, I'm using 6 inches for the skirt parts. I'm just going ahead to connect it to the 0.5 on both sides. I would also come down by 0.5 and also extend the waist by 0.5 upwards. Then I'm going to go ahead and also trace out the sketch. Remember that our pattern paper was folded into 2 and we are making an asymmetric design. So I'm just going to try to trace out my marking so I get to see it on the other part of the pattern paper. This is me just, so I'm gonna have to trace this out now. Now from the side of my skirt, I'm going to come in by about 3 inches, and then I would rule an asymmetric line. So you can do whatever shape you want. You can even do the tulip shape. It is up to you, soulmates. So I have my style line already. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. So from the side, I actually came in by 3 inches. You can do more or lesser. Now I'm going to go ahead and close my dart because I actually want a dartless skirt. So I'm going to close up my dart now, and then I'm going to tape it down to secure it. This is me just taping it down. So I'm just fine tuning it. Like I said, now if you actually want a tulip design, you can go ahead to do that. This is me just drawing out another shape which you can actually try out. So my pattern set is ready. I have the short and I also have the skirt. So a combination of both is what we know refer to, or we know as the skirt. So I'm gonna to cut out my pattern on fabric off camera to save us some time. Now for the allowance, now I actually added 1.5 inch to the sides, and then 1 inch to the hem, and 0.5 inch all everywhere else. The same thing for the skirt, 0.5 at the upper part, and then 1.5 at the sides, and then 0.5 at the upper part, other sides too, and 1 inch at the hem. I also went ahead to close up my dart because I actually want a dartless shirt. I don't want to sew that on my shirt, but it is optional. If you want, you can actually go ahead to sew your darts. Now it's time for us to start joining. I will start with the front first. I'm going to sew my crotch line, and then I'll repeat the same thing for the back. I'll sew the crotch. I'm just taking out my pins from my pattern now. So I'm going to sew my crotch line on 0.5 inch. So I've gone ahead to sew it and I've pressed it open. So this is what it looks like. I see that it is laying flat. So I repeated the same thing for the back too. So this is what it looks like. Now the next thing for us to do now is to sew the hem of our skirt part and then the sides of our skirt part. We'll be sewing it up. Can you see on 0.5 and then the hem on 0.5, 0.5. So I'm just folding it on 0.5 inch like so. I would also go ahead to press it first before sewing it, and I'll put the same thing for the side on 0.5 0.5. Note, you can also turn it with your lining. Now this is me when I'm done sewing it down. I'm also gonna have to sew the hem of the trouser on 0.5 inch. So I'm just going to go ahead now and place my skirt on the front part of my shirt. I'm just going to go ahead to pin it down, and then I'll place the back on it. Right side facing right side, please. Right side facing right side, don't get confused. So I'm just going to go ahead to secure it with pins now. Pinning your fabric actually makes it easier to sew. So make sure the hem is actually aligning, and you want to do that by securing it with your pins. Make sure they're also aligning at the waist region. Now the allowance I actually left is 1.5, which I'm just going to go ahead and mark. Or you're shaping your waist by waist divided by 2, then you mark it, then whatever you have left you share it equally on both sides. I would also go ahead and measure from my waist to my hip, which is 8 inches, and then divide my hip circumference by 2, mark it, then the excess I have, I'll take the measurement, divide it into 2, and then connect it like so. This is how to shape your dress. And I'm also going to go ahead and connect it to the hem of my shirt or my skirt. I don't know why I keep saying trouser, maybe because I make a lot of trousers, but at least you understand what I'm saying, that we're actually making a skirt, a shirt with a skirt in front. Alright, so I've gone ahead to sew it, and I've also pressed it down, and this is how neat and nice it looks like. So the next thing for us to do now is to fix our rope to the front part of our skirt. So we're gonna have to cut out my rope 2 inches width, that's 4 inches when you actually open it up, 2 inches unfold. Now and then I actually went ahead to sew it down. Now you are going to measure about 5 inches from the waistline and then pin it down. For the second rope now, I'm going to fix it into the sides. I'm also going to measure 5 inches too, and then put it inside. Now the length of my rope, I actually used 15 inches because I don't want it too long. You can make yours longer or shorter. So I'm going to remove some parts of the sides that I stitched up and then put my rope inside. Or you can even leave your space when you are sewing so that you can just put the rope before you stitch it up. So I'm just taking out the seams. Please always use a seam ripper, not the blade like I am doing here, because I couldn't find the seam ripper at that particular point in time. So I'm going to insert the rope inside now, and then I'll go back and stitch it up like so. Now I'm also gonna have to cut out my band. The width of my band is 1.5 inches on fold, 3 inches when you open it up, because I actually want a tiny band. And then the length is my waist circumference. So I was going to go ahead and take out the back seam now, because I'll be fixing my zipper at the back, and then I'm going to pin down my band starting from the back to round the waist to the front to the second part of the back where I'll be having the zipper. So I've actually gone ahead to stitch it up, the rope and then the band. As you can see, it is looking nice, and I'm also gone ahead to press it. This is what it looks like. I see how neat the band is. I actually stitched it from the right side into the wrong side. Now it's time to fix our zipper. I'm just going to go ahead and pin it now, and then I would sew it down. This is me just pinning down my zipper to make my work easier for me. This is me just pinning down my zipper. So I'll just pin it down to the other side now, and then I'll take it to my sewing machine and sew it down. Alright, so I'm done pinning now. I'll just go back to my sewing machine and sew this down, then I'll come back and show you the next thing to do. But before I go now, I'll also be flipping the side of my band, the other side of my band, and then I'll be sewing it down just so it is neat. Alright, so I've gone ahead to sew down my zipper, and this is what it looks like from the wrong side. You can see how neat it is. And then I also went ahead to stitch down my band. Now the next thing, or the last thing left for us now, is to sew our inseam. So I'll be joining both the front and the back together, and then I'll sew it on 0.5 inch. Now I've gone ahead to sew it down, and as you can see, it is looking so beautiful and so nice. This is what it looks like now. Very nice, very cutesy. I'm just going ahead to tie my rope so actually you can see how it is done. This is it. So we are done with our skirt, and you can see it's actually a very easy tutorial, very simple. Alright guys, so we come to the end of this tutorial, and I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please like, share and comment. It really means a lot to us. And if you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe so that you get notified whenever I post a new video. Alright guys, so I'll see you in my next tutorial. Bye guys.